When you start to plan your text, my recommendation is that you think about, maybe even make yourself a little map. What am I going to have where? So I want my text to say, that moment when, you know what, the way I've got that there, this is the biggest word and these are smaller. I wonder if I can make that moment bigger. So moment is here, and then maybe that moment when. So you can think about where those words are going to go. You can even get, wacky. There's no reason your text couldn't come across here. Moment, that moment when. And so you can play with where you want things spaced. When you actually go to start putting your text in, I highly recommend that you make a line. So I'm going to just make some marks at 5 inches here so that I know that they're straight. And then I'm going to draw myself a line. Now I'm drawing this in pencil because I'm going to want to erase it, and I'm drawing it kind of light as well. So that's the bottom or top of my text. I guess since I draw all this stuff over here, I'm going to make it the bottom. So I'm going to make another set of lines, maybe 3 inches. Another line. I'm going to measure it. On the example I have above with the colored in text, I kind of winged it, right? I kind of just guessed. And one of the things you can see is education gets a little smaller as it goes over to the right. So here's where I'm going to put moment. Now let me think about planning. I want some space away from the edge of the page. So I'm going to have both letters, both ends of the word end before that edge. I don't want to butt it right up against the edge. And then I'm going to M-O-M-E-N-T. Check my spelling. Moment. Okay. So I've got 6 letters. M-O-M and E-N-T. And so I'm going to divide this space in half. So if I use a ruler, I've got 11 inches across here, or almost 11. I'm going to go ahead and just make it so it's a perfect 11. So I'm going to adjust where that edge line is, because that'll just make the math easier, right? And then half of 11 should be 5.5. So I'm going to mark my 5.5 here and measure and divide that. Oops, the line didn't draw. Divide that space. There we go. So now I know I've got 3 letters to fit there and 3 letters to fit there. Now I want to show you kind of something I use sometimes because I'm lazy, because I think it's a nice trick. So I'm going to take a little bit of paper, and so this is in case you don't have a ruler, or in case math makes you run screaming from the room. So I'm going to take and I'm going to measure this piece of paper is now basically the length of my 3 letters. And I'm going to fold this into thirds. Now you could measure too. If you're happy with the math, go for it. Just divide 5.5 by 3. But I'm not, I think it's nice to have this as an option so that you can always divide something. You can essentially fake your own ruler here. So now I've got this piece of paper that has these creases. Now I can also measure, and it turns out that is a little under 2 inches, maybe 1 3/4 or so. But this handmade ruler is a nice tool to have in a pinch, right? You always have it with you. You can always make this work. And it may not be absolutely precision, but it's close enough that it helps us space these marks. So now I'm going to divide up these lines. Now, if I were to fill M-O-M into here, I know that those letters would just bang up against each other. So I'm going to take a little bit of space away. Now, M's are larger, so I'm going to go ahead and take that space away from the O in the middle here. So now what I've got is the space for my M, the space for my O, and the space for my M. Now, if you want to get really going crazy, you can decide, are you doing an M that goes, the middle goes all the way to the bottom, or do you want to do an M that has kind of a, halfway? And you can further divide your space so that you have a guide for where those letters go. Remember when you were a kid and they were teaching you to write and there was a line at the top, a line at the bottom, and a dashed line in the middle? Essentially, we're doing that, right? So I'm going to just kind of sketch in my M, my other M, as long as I'm doing M's, and my O. And I can get if I want to make them kind of thick letters, I can add the extra thickness there. Now, I will probably go ahead and actually mark out, get my angles so I can draw them with a ruler. But you could use this similar sort of thing for doing bubble letters, right? Like curvy letters, so you can make these look like balloons. That popular middle school lettering trick, I think, just make them round and fluffy. But you could also, at this point, mess with your edges. So let's scoot over and look at the E and T. So I'm going to just rough in my spaces. So there's my E, there's my N, and there's my T, roughly. So I could, fit the E just like this. I could also play around with having, one of the letters be a bit higher, or having the ends of the letters come just a bit above that line on some parts. So maybe on these finials, essentially, at the end, right? And so you can start to break the lines in a similar sort of way once you have the guidelines established. So if I had my M's and my N's hang below my line, and then every other line, or every other letter stayed where it belonged, that would give some consistency while kind of messing with the font. And it would give a sense of movement, down, up, down, up, down, up, or down and up, and make that font a little bit more fun and a little bit more exciting.